We're here today with Heather Aubrey Lloyd. The album is entitled Panic Room with a View, which in 2026 I feel like could be used to describe any apartment. Um, the song you just heard was the number that sort of drew me in. Are You Lost? Um, you asked that question. And I feel like for an awful lot of people, the answer is yeah, yeah. Everything seems a little confusing right now, but the what you present in the song are two things, resilience and community. And that runs all the way through the album. So let me start off by asking you about resilience. How do you build any of that when it almost feels like there's this purposeful goal for those who are looking to take control of everything to knock down your resilience by sort of bombarding you with every imaginable negative news story every single day you wake up.
Wow, that's a lot. But way to see exactly what's there. Yeah, the album opens with "Are You Lost" and it closes with December 32nd, 2020, which has a line in it that says, that we still sing like a prayer we only half believe. And honestly, every song I've ever written that sounded resilient or sounded optimistic when I wrote it was the prayer I only half believed. I was writing my own hymns long before I expected anyone else to buy it. And that's the thing. Are You Lost came from a really weird place, and it was the first song I wrote in the heart of pandemic. So I long to be made irrelevant, but I guess on some level I'm grateful that the lessons transfer and maybe some of the hope transfers. Are You Lost came from the optimism when we didn't know better that we thought we might still play festivals that summer. And so I was looking at like the festival FAQ questions and I was trying to get stuff ready for a couple of things. And one of the FAQ questions said, "Are you lost or did you lose someone?" Literally like if you had a kid lost at the festival. But I was not in that headspace, and so it kind of leveled me. And I thought, yeah, I know. It's like the dumbest way that a song ever got inspired. It's like, where can I park my bike? Can I bring my awesome pet? Are you lost or did you lose someone? The gut punch of an FAQ question. But what I thought at the time, after I kind of rallied from the emotional impact of that, was man, I wish someone would just come back in time and get me or tell me you're gonna make it or this is how we're gonna go about it. Like, I joke constantly that that's my Back to the Future folk song because in it, future you comes back to get the youthful and lost you, but you still have to do it all. Like the time paradox problems. You don't get out of it. I'm just going to walk alongside you with the knowledge. How much easier would it be if you knew you would make it? And that's the opening volley of the album. How much easier would all this be if you knew you would make it?
Well, we don't have time travel established quite yet. Um, if we did, I'd certainly be playing with it constantly.
Oh, I know, it's so tempting right now. So dangerous.
Um, so we don't have future us, but what we do have in our lives are people earlier along that timeline of life. Me working with students, it's a reminder all the time that sometimes, even though you're lost yourself, you have to find a way to show that resilience and show that hope to people who need it for themselves. And it doesn't matter if you have it all put together or not. You still have to be able to, you know, be there and pick up others in your community. So if you were future you, um, how would you go about uh, helping people feel like there's a path through it all?
Ooh, it's a rough time to think about that kind of stuff right now. I get down, you know. I mean, thankfully I'm a folk singer, so no one expects me to be happy. Um, but what age kids do you work with? Do you mind if I ask? It'll inform my answer.
Uh, Secondary school.
Okay. Bless your heart. I used to be a long term sub for high school, and then I became an instructional assistant for special education kids for a couple of years. The long term subbing was a great foil and a great way to make touring work because I did like the maternity leave shuffle where women would be like, I'm pregnant, no one knows. You know, what are you doing in April? So it was a lot of that kind of stuff. I could set it up and then I'd tour. And there is something that I found about working with kids. It's hard. I mean, no two ways about it. But there is a part of you that kind of snaps into it's not about me and I've got to, uplift my community, the raising of the village. And then kids sort of have this way of healing up things in you. Like it's when you have I have three step kids. You go through certain things with your kid or with your student that's something you went through as a kid. And in a way, it is that time travel thing. You get an opportunity for a do over on the way you wanted something handled with you. And so I have been able to have these moments where I've been more calm than someone was able to be with me, or more compassionate than someone was able to be with me. And so I do think like everyone should spend some time. Like, I didn't want kids of my own, and I firmly believed in the raising of the village. Whether you opt to have your own or not, time spent in the education or uplifting of children in your community not only forces you to care and have hope or at least investment in the future, it will also heal up things in you that you get an opportunity to change the past in a way. You get an opportunity to change your past.
Yeah, it's certainly it's certainly a job that you don't take for the purpose of getting rich or good sleep. Uh,
That's the truth. When I was really in the heart of the heavy gigging days, that was rough. I would sleep like, 3 hours at night, 3 hours and when I got off of work, and then go to the gig after.
mm. Is it okay, especially when you're in a position like stepmothering or teaching kids, to just straight up admit, I'm lost?
I actually made vows to my stepkids, and one of the vows was that, well, two of them. One, I would never lie to them, and two, I would never ask them to do anything I wasn't willing to do first myself. So I'm kind of bound by my agreements I already made. I'm generally not a fan of lying to kids. And I think it's important for adults to show kids you are willing. Like, nothing you're asking them is this thing that is just purely for them because they're littler or less powerful. Like, no, we're in it together. There's an experience points kind of difference here, and certain authority and respect should be paid. But beyond that, we can have a conversation. I think with middle schoolers, that's almost impossible, which is why I did not ever teach in middle school. They just crazy and hormones, and there is no logic or reason there. You're just holding on for dear life. Um,
It's entertaining.
so I think especially with pandemic, with the album, and a lot of that content, it was weird because my parents had been through major shifts in the world, and you encounter certain political upheaval or certain things like that, and they could at least suggest they had seen hard times of that nature and watched it play out for the better. with pandemic, it was a perfect example of like, nope, my parents don't have this information. I don't have this information. If you ask me if it's going to be okay, I can tell you that I don't know, but that I will do everything I can, and we're going to have to like each throw in for the greater good. And so I think that's it. I think it's totally I think more people should admit they're lost, frankly, if you look at the way the world is and the way, kind of oh, what is it called when you think you know more than you really do? There's a term for it, and I can't believe I'm forgetting it right now. People who have the least experience are firmly in the belief that they are the most experienced, and people who have the most experience firmly believe they have the most to learn. And I think if more people were willing to admit they didn't know, they were willing to leave open the possibility they didn't know, the world might actually be a better place.
Good answer.
Thank you. That's like nice order, man.
Well, feeling lost, it's a very real thing. And especially in these times, I feel like it comes along with being empathetic and feeling a sense of community. So, um, would you describe that as sort of the source of a lot of that pain, looking and seeing others and feeling what they're feeling?
Ooh, yes. The world is loud and too much, and I definitely have to turn it off quite frequently. I'm deeply introverted, as a lot of singer songwriters are. The writing process is a very personal and a very private process, and then you go take that into the world in this very extroverted show of it. And so a lot of people don't realize how introverted most songwriters are. So community is actually quite difficult for me. It's draining for me. It is painful. I think introverts in this world right now are up against this kind of reckoning. How do you care and how do you protect yourself? I have like days where I will just be like, nope, I spoke 3 words to another human being today, and I have that luxury now because the last kid has gone off to college. But I have to like trick myself into not feeling guilty for the introversion. Like, no, if you take a day and you don't speak to anybody, you might have enough strength to do the necessary community part. You might have enough strength to read the really terrible story. You might have enough strength to write the letter you don't think's gonna matter to your congressman. So that's, I think, the biggest thing. I think people who are deeply empathetic and are struggling to bear community, because it's not just like community uplifts and community supports. There's a transactional aspect to it. So I think what I've had to do lately is go off and rally so I could come in ready. I really am, I'm actually like pushing right now to pay a lot more attention to making sure I'm in good health so that I have the strength to do such things. So, yeah, I know it's kind of a weird, over honest answer, but I don't know how to do different.
First of all, over honest answers are what this show is about.
Yay!
Um, so is weird. Um, so I feel like you go through the ultimate act of empathy on this album and put yourself in the middle of a war zone.
Mm,
And no one, no one lacking that ability to make those connections with community members could write a song like that unless they've lived it. And looking at you, looking at where you are, my assumption is that you haven't been in a situation like that. So how do you get yourself inside that position mentally? How do you do it justice?
That's a really good question. So my actual profession before I was able to become a full time musician, yeah, I did the subbing thing on the side. My degree is in journalism. I went to the University of Maryland College Park and I worked for the Baltimore Sun briefly, did some stuff for Patch. And when I worked for the Baltimore Sun, what was wild about that was, I was going into parts of the city where people were like, oh, you should be afraid, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, no, the more reporting I did, it's like people are people. And for the most part, they're just trying to raise their kids and not die in some stupid way. And so, like, I remember I went into a neighborhood for something where they had given up hope that they were going to control the drug dealers in the area. So they had gone to Public Works to ask for speed bumps just to slow them down so they would stop hitting their kids. And that was one of those moments where I thought if people who lived outside of the city knew that, really intimately understood that feeling, just give me a speed bump, you know, that maybe, that's what it is. And so where journalism and folk singing has an interesting intersection point is when I first started writing songs, I was very uncomfortable with the idea of not writing absolute truth because I had come out of journalism and I had come out of journalism in an age where they aggressively beat assumption and gap filling out of you. I don't, now we're into more sort of like commentary and sort of opinion based journalism, and it's tough finding those types of sources where it's like, no, this has been reviewed by 9 different editors before anyone ever saw it. I graduated from school right as online journalism was beginning. My teacher for an online journalism class was the first online editor for WashingtonPost.com, so I was there at the change. So when I went into songwriting, it was like, oh, I can't make stuff up. And then folk singing and folk writing says, if you can find all these truths and bind them in a story that unifies them. So let's say all these different stories, but they come from different families, and you make them one family to make the impact greater. That's the greater truth born of the stitching of stories. So to the girl who shared the siege with me, which is the song you're talking about on Panic Room with a View, that was almost a cathartic, like I almost threw that song up. I saw a meme or like a post on Reddit, and it was a spray painted wall in the city of Aleppo that said, the translation, was being argued about in the comments, and it said, to the girl who shared the siege with me, I love you. And I was just, you can't make that stuff up. And so I read a little deeper in the comments, and people were sort of discussing translation, debating whether it was to the girl or to the city in the feminine, and I was really taken with that. The journalist in me had to look certain stuff up because I don't live there. I had this instinct to think of people in bombed places, people who are refugees. Your brain says, that's a desert people. This is the image I've been given. And I imagined someone who had never seen the snow, and thank God the journalist spoke up and said, you should look up what the weather actually is in Aleppo. And they do get snow there. So I had to alter, before I finished the song, my assumption, which is the other thing that journalism and folk singing both demand. I need to alter my assumption. But so based on this kernel of, there are 2 people who did meet during a siege and share this time together and write this on the wall, and I don't know what happened to them. Born is this song that says the truth that is everyone's truth. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter how you feel. People have been intrigued because it's a female narrator, because it's coming through me. Is it a song about 2 women? Frankly, it's everything all at once, because it's about people at the moment where you turn to the person next to you and they are all you have, and you don't know if you are going to die, and you didn't do anything. You didn't deserve it. And so you seek comfort in that person because that's all there is. And that, yeah, I mean, if it's community of 2, but it's the greater message of when we are facing oblivion, and there may be nothing else you can do. What else is there but turning to the person next to you? So, yeah, you don't know what happens to them in the song, just as I didn't know what happened to them when I wrote it. Um, it's about remembering beautiful things. It's about connecting to a person at the most important of all moments. And then for people who are curious about the reality, because of course I'm a glutton for punishment and I had to go try to seek it out later, it was a couple and they did survive. There are pictures of them later in front of the wall.
There you go. That's a shockingly happy ending for that
Exactly.
song. Um, how does that camaraderie apply to people going through what we're all going through now? Because it just doesn't seem to translate the same way. It doesn't seem like we're all facing all these crises and looking at each other and saying, I love you. It seems like we're looking at each other with suspicion and just a drive to compete and silence. It's just become so dark.
I'm having a hard time. I've been doing this a long time. So, the mailing list is big, the fan base is spread out over, 24 years of touring the country. I've played every state in the lower 48 United States. Um, and the good thing about that is that I've never been able to put myself in an echo chamber. Not everybody around me thinks like I do. Not everybody around me acts like I do. And as painful as it's been to preserve the diversity of thought in all of my feeds and all of my fans, I can't have it any other way. But it's been lately where I'm afraid to start certain types of conversations. I don't want to know someone is a certain way. And I had a couple people deeply surprise me. People who I thought, based on who they are, who they loved, what they believed, how they lived, could not possibly align with forces that would seemingly destroy them too. And I've been shocked to find that the case. I feel guilty about not engaging in those conversations. And the songs, in some way, are the way I tell myself I am engaging in large scale version of those conversations in a sneaky way. To the girl that shared the siege with me is the definition of show don't tell. I'm not telling you how to feel about these people. I'm not telling you how to feel about any particular war zone or conflict. The only thing in the song that reveals location is the 9 gates of the Citadel. That's an Aleppo thing, but honestly, that can be anywhere in the world at any time when, a bomb can be dropped, and the song's vague enough that potentially those bombs could be pre-mechanization, you know? Um, the notion that the fear of siege for no reason than other people's greater conflicts is a universal thing. Folk songs look to tap into the universal thing to jar people who think that their problem or their feeling or their hatred or their bias is somehow unique. I I am not a very optimistic person. I when it comes right down to it, I don't walk around and be like, well, a song can change the world. Every once in a while, a song has changed me. And people are stubborn. You can talk and talk and talk, but deeply held beliefs are not dispelled even by logic. Music attacks the feeling. And so if you can get into somebody via a pathway that seems neutral and universal enough. Oh my God, I'm horrified by the idea that this loving couple may never see the light of day. You might have to address other things within yourself. I'm a big fan of this songwriter, Jean Rowe, who lives here in New York. And she had a song called Sisterly. And no other song I've ever heard in my life ever changed me so much. There's a verse in it that says, I'm not known for being sisterly. Let the strong girls win and cut the weak ones free. The boys lie. The boys are mean. I better get myself a spot on the boys' team. Every girl for her, every man for herself. It was this notion of like the misogyny that we're raised on that we then inflict even as women on each other, this competitive aspect, and I felt called out. And it was really her calling herself out. She was telling a story of witnessing a fight on the street and debating whether to call the police or walk down herself or turn away. And I had never been so rattled and had to think to myself, oh my God, I actually probably am a little more misogynist than I thought, for all my, being fairly intelligent and fairly self aware. And after I heard that song, I endeavored to play with more women. I endeavored to offer opportunities to more women, singer songwriters, and sort of release some of that competitive aspect. So I don't think songs all change the world, but I think songs do change people one at a time, intercepting that little teeny part of them that can still be accessed through all of the stubborn, through all of the bias.
All right, let's hear The Girl Who Shared the Siege. Um, and what was that song you mentioned?
Oh, Jean Rowe, and the song is called Sisterly.
All right, let's hear that too, and we'll be right back.